first speaker this morning will be Dr. Oscar C. Nigley. As some of you may be knowing, he is a Vice President with the All India Anglo-Indian Association. He's been leader of the association in Madras, in Tamil Nadu in fact. On the professional side, he has been Professor of Economics at Loyola College, Madras, and has guided many research students. He's been at the forefront, visiting various branches of the association within Tamil Nadu for all the AGMs, for all their needs, and it is with great pleasure that we invite him to address us all.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm glad to hear that morning back again, because it's been a late night for most of us, and Barry and I were the last to leave, although we were also the last to come in as well. So I'm glad that we have been here on an occasion that we want to interact and share, but as I said, the time constraint will probably make me rush, but I shall try as far as possible. I'm just in light of telling them when we spoke about the time constraint. If I have to calculate for every year of service to the community, then probably that's 3 decades, so 1 minute every year, so I require at least 30 minutes. Absolutely. So, but then, I was just thinking to myself today, when this word itself is addressed, torchbearer. Who is a torchbearer? A torchbearer is someone who leads, who inspires, and he's a crusader. So we need to examine ourselves. Do we fit into that? Or have we done what is expected of us as torchbearers, or as crusaders, or as leaders? Because even in economics, you have what is called a product can be a torchbearer, because it's a trendsetter. So when you're a trendsetter, you have to be the lead to others. I'll start off with this question which was asked to me when I was an MLA in 1989. The first time I was an MLA. The minister then asked me, very friendly with me, asked me, how long do you think, Professor, your community will survive? This was in 89. You think they will be wiped out another 20 years? I told him emphatically, I said the answer is no, and you can see even another 30 years from now, that was 89, I can assure you this will never happen. How do I say this? How did I say it? Even at that time, if you looked at pockets of Anglo-Indians, for example, Perambur branch has about 1,000 Anglo-Indian families. Now, if you look at all these people, and as a whole, I think Anglo-Indians are also very good Christians. Go forth, multiply, and fill the earth. So they've also been doing that. So for every person who's gone, look at every branch. When I look at the Coimbatore branch in the 1960s, the strength of the Coimbatore branch in the 60s and the Coimbatore branch today is the same. Which means for every person who's left, there's been equal number of people who've also been added on. So this is what is the idea that we realize, that our community will survive. And if you look at pockets all over the place, for example, Chennai, many of us know in Pallavaram, in Perambur, and the only place I would say we lost out was Georgetown. There's been a large amount of migration, but people didn't remain there. When I really look about this whole aspect of the Anglo-Indian community, I go back to my mentor, the late Frank Anthony, because his emphasis, and I believe that's a very strong area which any leaders worth his salt should talk about, is about education, which I'll come to, which is the primary thing which all of us agree about. And the famous economist Lachlan Knox said, poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. Poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. And how does one overcome poverty? I believe as far as the community is concerned, any community, it is education, which means, to translate in economic terms, investment in human capital. We always talk about investment in machines, land, etc., etc. But are we talking about investment in humans, in human capital? And that is the most important thing today when you talk about investment, because that's a long-term investment. And that's an investment that will fetch you returns beyond compare. And that is the whole concept of it. And today, we're talking about investment in human capital. And we also have a concept called PQLI, which means a physical quality of life index. We're not talking about just the calories that we have to eat to indicate what your quality of life is. But the other factors as well, your living standards, your housing, and all the other things. And therefore, I go back to another area when we talk about poverty. It is the Anglo-Indian woman today is going through a lot of hardships, because we have again a divide. The 40 plus or the 50 plus, we still have a lot of issues of single mothers, we have issues of alcoholism, we have issues of unemployment. As even it was said yesterday, it's not that they're unemployed, they just don't want to be employed. So in other words, they're employable, but they don't wish to be employed. So therefore, when you address these issues of many young mothers who have actually look after their children's education, today we know higher education costs a bomb, school education costs the earth, and there are very few schools which really help Anglo-Indian children. And that is where the role of an Anglo-Indian leader is. Whether you're a governing body member, a senior vice president, or you could be anybody, you could be an MLA, the role of a leader is there to interact, to reach out to people. Otherwise, what will happen is, we will find, there will be a time when you will not be able to, for Anglo-Indians to enjoy the quality of life. But thankfully, we've seen a huge transformation taking place in the last 20 years. What I've been working on as far as education is concerned, higher education and school education, there's been no school dropouts. And of course, fortunately, I must say with pride, the girl child has been far superior in her academic performance to the male counterpart, for whatever reasons. In all this, we have to understand that any leader has to target two sets of people. One is the very young, those who are being educated, who need to be educated, and the other is the elders. Because these are two very difficult areas which we need to concentrate on. And anybody, any association, any organization, any leader, any MLA has to emphasize these two broad ends of the spectrum. Because that is what will ultimately decide the very survival of the community. And we are an easy community, yes, but we've also got equal number of young people coming in. In fact, I was just talking this morning to one of my students, Lyndon Samuel, who's from Melbourne. He just landed up here today. He was telling me about Alan de Cruz, how there are many young Anglo-Indians in Australia who don't even know that they're Anglo-Indian, who don't understand what an Anglo-Indian is. I'm talking about the 20s, those in their 20s, 23, 24. So this man, what he does is, he tells them, you have to have the Anglo-Indian culture, you have to, and he even shows them how to have an Anglo-Indian wedding and what it is all about, what it is being together as an Anglo-Indian. Now, one might wonder, why am I worried about what's happening in Australia? We are very much concerned as to what is happening there, because this connects with us. This is part of our whole organization, it's part of our whole community, which we are working and ensuring that there is a huge improvement, there is a quality improvement that we're talking about. In fact, Jennifer asked that question yesterday. We've had people moving into various walks of life. Why not journalism? Good question. In fact, that's one of the areas I would like to probably motivate people. In fact, I do that at various levels when I address. We have 16 branches in Tamil Nadu, and I make it a point to visit all these branches, their AGMs, and there I have a separate session for youth. The concentration is on the youth, young people, making them understand and speak. We speak so much about our knowledge of English, but sadly, when it comes to speaking, a lot needs to be done. So one of the things I often keep telling them is, you need to work on educating yourself in speaking. I make them come on stage, I make them speak. In fact, we know how our Anglo-Indian expressions are sometimes. In fact, you laugh if I tell you this very hotel, Ambassador Pallava. If you ask an Anglo-Indian in Chennai, you know what he will tell you? Ambassador Pallava. He drops his A. I've heard of H has been dropped, but this is the first time I've heard of her. So this is known very often, it's very famously known as Ambassador Pallava. God is wondering who I'm going to bash. The other thing is, of course, I would also, yes, one more question was about us not being connected, like the Aadhaar card, the passport, in voter ID. Then what happens is, people do not have all their documents. Then they have a problem, then they come to the MLA. As I said, it's all wanted in a short time, in a very, in a short period of time. So, he says 1 minute more, but then, I know, Richard, I'm not trying to bulldoze you like what Barry did yesterday, but you'll have to, because this is the first time, and I'm sure the law of diminishing utility has not been adopted, and I really need to share a few points. So, I think I'll have to skip a little bit, you'll have to bear with me, and I'll slowly get the support of all my friends and say, yes, bear with me, because I need to share a few things with you. Accountability. The three things about an MLA, I believe, is accountability, accessibility, and availability. Accountable because you have to do something. You need to understand people, and available at all times. People can walk in your house anytime. And of course, accessibility, as you know, I don't have to go to, I would have probably spent more time, but I will cut it short. So an MLA has to be a palladium as a pillar. And the question raised yesterday, in fact, I have to refute. So a couple of things I need to say, because as a leader in the community, I need to refute a few things. So one of the things raised by my friend Alan C., whom I'm a great admirer of his writings, he concluded by saying, you don't need a representation. We don't need representation. I would simply refute that. Because, and I have to refute it on behalf of the All-Indian Association, any other association would agree with me, whether the MLA would agree with me. We need this representation because lots has to be done, and it's possible. Again, the question is asked, what happens if you have an MLA who doesn't perform, who doesn't function? There's nothing we can do about it except make representations and hope that such people are not re-nominated, but happening in some cases. The only thing is that there are MLAs who are performing. So let's encourage those people and make them, because the more we talk about non-performing MLAs, we talk about corruption in the public life of the MLAs paying, it's dangerous, because finally this will become a public debate, and they will say, why do we need it? We can do away with MLAs, because there's so much of problems. So the only thing is we need to address it ourselves and see how best we can groom people who are honest, who are accountable, who are not worried about all these spills of office. Because that is important, because I believe we are like a sunflower. A sunflower looks towards the sun. But anybody ever wondered, when there is no sun, what happens? You would imagine the sunflower would fade and droop. No, it doesn't. Botanists will tell us the sunflower turns to each other. Each sunflower turns to look at each other, and they draw their energy from each other, and they don't fade. As Anglo-Indians, are we going to do that? Can we do that? That should be our motto, to look at each other and draw support and draw this strength. It's only then we will be able to understand how it is happening. And over the years we see that, as I said, communication is a big issue. So what we're trying to address is basically poverty. If poverty as an issue is addressed, I think we will go along, and education is the ultimate answer to poverty. These are correlated, and if you are able to invest in education and make sure that these educated people are able to perform and even earn much better, you will slowly see that poverty is being wiped out. And of course, with a lot of support being given. As I said, time is a huge factor, but the important thing, as all of us need to understand and realize, is being a torchbearer, being an MLA, means that one has to love your community. You need to love what you're doing. And you need to be able to be accountable and answerable and say, yes, I have been given this job to do, and I have to perform, and therefore, we will all come together as leaders, as on our common platform, wherein we will be able to contribute much to a community that has betrayed but been loved, but at the same time a community that will serve and carry on being served. Thank you so much, and God bless this community.
Our next speaker is Dr. Charles Dias. As some of us do know, he was a member of Parliament during 2009-2014. That was the 15th Lok Sabha. He hails from Cochin in Kerala. He's written a couple of books. One is The Portuguese in Malabar, and the other one which was released the other day, the Anglo-Indians and the Future. So he's been quite a strong voice from Kerala. If I'm not right, you are the first MP from Kerala. Yes, and so we are keen to hear about the community and its associations in Kerala. Over to Dr. Charles Dias.
My fellow speakers, my dear friends, I'm thankful to the organization for giving me the opportunity to speak on the community. At the outset, I salute those who have come from far and near. For the solidarity of Anglo-Indians, I salute all of you, for that matter. And today I've been asked to speak about Anglo-Indians in Kerala. My subject is confined to Kerala. I don't know. I represent the community. In fact, there is a Federation of Anglo-Indian Associations formed in 2012, soon after the National Convention of Anglo-Indians held in 2011. And there are 14 registered organizations in the Federation, and one of the prominent members is the Calcutta Anglo-Indian Service Society. I don't know, they are not invited to talk today. The Calcutta Anglo-Indian Service Society conducted a very successful reunion in 2013. And moreover, under the auspices of the Federation only, the first ever meeting of the MPs, MLAs and leaders were conducted in 2017 with the initiative of this Federation at the Ministry of Minority Affairs in 2017 January. Anyway, that is for information's sake. I will limit my speech, my paper within the allotted 8 minutes or 10 minutes. You can give me the warning. I will try to finish it, my paper, within that limit of time. And that is about the Federation and the associations working under it. Now, coming back to Kerala, I think many of the researchers know that the Kerala's community is the oldest, because Portuguese landed in 1498 in Kerala, Calicut. And the first navigator who came to Kerala, the Portuguese navigator, was Pedro Alvarez Cabral. He found out Brazil also in 1500 AD. Anyway, that was history. And you know what happened? The Portuguese came, the Dutch came, the French, then the British, with a sprinkle of Germans and Italians. The Germans came as financiers, the Italians came as gunners. They used to make very good guns. Not only for the Portuguese, but for the whole chieftains and the native kings. So that is the background of the community in Kerala. And you know that in what circumstances the Portuguese married the local woman. And a community was formed. Anyway, that is history. The Dutch followed it, the French followed it, the British followed it. Ultimately, the name Anglo-Indian was given to the community. Coming back to Kerala organizations. The first organization was formed in Kerala in 1922 by the initiative of late Chevalier Paul Louis. And later, in 1936, when Sir Henry Kidney visited Cochin, we started the branches of the All India Anglo-Indian Association. It continued till 1952. And in 1952, after the first general elections, the then President-in-Chief of ours, the President of ours, late A.D. Louis, was a businessman and a young law graduate, immensely rich. He tried for MPship, but it didn't go well with the central leadership. Then, because of some problems, we severed the ties with the All India Anglo-Indian Association and formed the Union of Anglo-Indian Associations, Kerala State. And till 1990, there were 36 member associations affiliated to it. Now it is 43, right from Trivandrum till Canada. 43 associations. And we have in major centers, there are centers below 50 families. In Canada, for example, below 50 families. And in major centers, we have formed youth movement units and ladies units, about 25 centers. And in 1945, before the great visionary Frank Anthony started his Frank Anthony schools in the 60s, in 1945, Kerala started 12 Anglo-Indian schools with the permission of the then erstwhile native king, the Cochin king, where there was a very good system of education. And these schools imparting education in English medium. Now, 1 higher secondary, 2 high schools, 3 upper primary schools, and the rest of LP schools are managed by a separate body under the Union of Anglo-Indian Associations, which is the Central Board of Anglo-Indian Education. And even before nominations started in the Parliament, or for that matter in the Central Legislative Assembly Council, the former during the British period, in the state of Cochin, we could secure some reservations in the Cochin State Legislative Assembly as well as in the Municipal Council of Cochin, where an Anglo-Indian lady, Mrs. L.G. Bernard, was the chairperson. And in the Ernakulam, the close-by municipality, one Mr. Peter Korea was the elected municipal chairman of that municipality. So you could very well imagine the prominence the Anglo-Indians had in Cochin. And for that matter, in some places like Carapi, Trivandrum, Koilon, Calicut, etc. And Frank Anthony visited twice Kerala. One of our schools was named after Frank Anthony. Later we have changed that name. Then, coming back to the organizational setup, we have established a society in the name of the Anglo-Indian Educational Charitable Society, started in 1964, to help the needy students. Then, coming back, we all speak about the identification of problems which the Anglo-Indian community is facing. And the first and foremost is unity. Even yesterday and day before yesterday, lots of talk about unity. Practically, I don't know what is happening, except for this reunion. Because of this reunion, you all are here, we could meet. Thanks to the International Federation for doing that. Once in 3 years, we meet in different corners of the globe. Now, what exactly are the problems the Anglo-Indian community is facing? That is one thing, one matter, one problem I faced when I was nominated to Parliament. Our minister asked me, what are the problems of the Anglo-Indian community? Then we had a discussion. I have invited Mr. Neil O'Brien, late Neil O'Brien, Barry O'Brien, and all others came. Most of the people came to Delhi when I was invited. Shiv Lazarus, all have come and met. From that only, finally the convention took place and the federation was formed. And now we have to decide what all are the priorities of language, what are the problems, what is the exact problems, which item we have to take in first. I find that first and foremost is unity. Even yesterday also it was listed by one speaker, I don't remember exactly. Yes, Mrs. Vignesh N. about unity. But what are the steps to be taken? That has to be decided. That has to be decided first. And what we can do is we can try. We cannot drag people together, but we can try that all the associations and leaders cannot bring the whole community together. But leaders at least come, meet, and interact each other. Then we will know what actually the community wants. And now another project I have taken up was the community centers in major Anglo-Indian pockets, especially states. In 12 states, there are Anglo-Indian nominated MLAs. And now, with the mercy of priests, we can assemble in their schools or in church compound. And after that, what we are going to do? The community's presence is not there. Housing problem, that's another different thing. But where the community is going to meet, what is the presence of the community there? Now there is a big presence in Chennai, in Bangalore, in Calcutta. But in other places, we have in Kerala 1 dozen of schools, 7 community centers constructed with my MP Lands funds, 5 clubs. So we have got 20-25 places to meet. What about the other areas? I am concluding that what we have to discuss, what we have to prioritize is first and foremost, as Vignesh N put forward it, I am for it, that create an atmosphere, create a forum where the leaders at least can come together and meet. I once again salute and thanking the organizers. And one more thing I tried to forget, this is my book which was released yesterday. It has got 25 chapters. 23 chapters are describing the history and the structure of organizations. The 24th chapter, it addresses the problems of the community, and 25th chapter, according to me, I have given 20 points, a 20-point program for the community to look at the future. And thank you for your patient listening. Once again, I salute you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Charles. That was interesting. Next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Beatrix D'Souza. She retired as professor and head of the Department of English, Presidency College. She has a PhD in Australian literature. In 1991, she was nominated MLA by the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, J. Jayalalitha, who later appointed her as the first Christian chairperson of the State Minorities Commission. She was also a member of the State Commission for Women. From 1998 to 2004, she served in the 12th and 13th Lok Sabha. She was the chairperson of the Committee on Laws Relating to Women. She was also the vice president of the Asia Pacific Parliamentary Conference on Environment and Development. In the year 1993, she founded the Forum of Anglo-Indian Women in Madras. So we would like her to speak on the forum as well as on Anglo-Indian women. Over to Dr. Beatrix.
Ladies and gentlemen, since Oscar has propounded an economic theory on the attributes of Torchbearer, I won't dwell on that subject. I accept the honor of being a torchbearer on behalf of all Anglo-Indian women who, down the centuries, have been torchbearers in their own right. The Anglo-Indian woman was the first to free herself from the shackles of caste and custom. The Hindu woman broke with caste to marry the European, and the Muslim came out from behind the veil of Pardha. These women, the first mothers who we have forgotten, had the responsibility of molding the first family, adapting, learning their husband's language, adapting to his customs, cooking his food, and her children, she would have been quite startled when she saw her first children, because, blue eyes looking out of her brown face, maybe a tuft of golden hair. But she brought up this family. She would have been converted to Christianity, but apart from teaching her children her own language, she would have told them stories from the rich mythology of her religion. Her children grew up speaking 2 languages, inheriting 2 cultures, and bestowing on future generations of Anglo-Indians a world vision that made them the most tolerant of people. As you know, the Anglo-Indian woman was the first to enter the workforce, breaking old barriers, choosing her own path. She was a strong, independent woman who retained her femininity and was a good wife and mother, a modern woman. I was a member of the All India Anglo-Indian Association from 1975 to 1993. I had major differences with Frank Anthony, and though I admired him tremendously, he was too autocratic for my liking. I left the All India with no ill will and on good terms with other branch presidents and Neil O'Brien. It came naturally to me to start an association of women. And you may ask, why start an association of women where there are so many associations of men? That's the reason why. I know. I wanted to harness the strength of the Anglo-Indian woman to further empower our women to improve the quality of our lives, the community, and larger society. Our motto is reach out for life. I chose the name Forum, as in the forums of ancient Rome, is a place of discussion and free speech. The forum, our forum, is the voice of the Anglo-Indian woman. I was fortunate in bringing together a group of like-minded women, Anglo-Indian artist, designer, and later an MLA, June Beale, a teacher, Anne Gonzalez, a banker, Eugene Pinto, a college professor, and later principal. We keep our numbers small. Our members are all handpicked, but we reach out to all Anglo-Indian women, whatever association they belong to. Our activities can be divided under 3 heads: women, youth, students, and senior citizens. The women we reach out to are below the poverty line. Many of them live in huts. We help with the rents and other help also. We have tried to empower women economically. We started a microcredit scheme where we gave loans from 500 to 5,000 rupees. But the women used it for household expenses, so it was a failure. And then we had a seminar that was funded by the State Bank of India, where we wanted to start small self-help groups, which are very, very popular all over India. In fact, the self-help groups, the money that they collect from the group is matched by the bank, and it is almost a parallel economy in India. We help these women almost on a daily basis with medical aid, other things, we pay their rents. And Later on, last year, we had a craft and cuisine fair to encourage our women entrepreneurs. And that will be an annual affair. We are the only association to have a flood relief program in 2015, and we relocated women from huts on riverbanks. The other day, a gentleman, Mr. Phillips, I wonder if he's here today, he introduced himself to me and said, "I'm Anne's rich cousin." I said, "Oh, may your tribe increase." He gave us almost 1.5 lakh for our flood relief program. We pay special attention to our senior citizens with medical aid. In 2012, we had a pension and housing mela to bring to the attention of the government the need for old age pensions and cheap housing. Easter Sunday is our senior citizen day. We also, again, unlike other associations, we reach out to society in general, especially to women. As women activists, we have held seminars on laws related to women. You know, in India, you have personal laws that affect Hindu women, Christian women, and Muslim women separately. We've also had seminars on domestic violence, sexual harassment, etc. Yes. In 2010, we launched the White Ribbon Campaign on violence against women, funded by Joe Bailey of Canberra and other generous Australians. As Anglo-Indian women, we have fought against stereotypes. When the film Cotton Mary was shown in India, there was an uproar in Kerala against portraying an Anglo-Indian nurse as a petty thief, her sister as a woman of loose morals, and the Anglo-Indian men as wasters. Expression. Andy Monty, our Vice President, filed a writ in Madras High Court, and the film was withdrawn. I was an MP in Delhi and was interviewed by BBC World. I was asked what I thought of the film, and I said it was cultural genocide. And this lady was rather shocked. She said, "Isn't that a rather extreme reaction?" I said, "You could kill a community by false portrayal as easily as you could kill a people." And I said it was time the community fought back against denigration and stereotyping. I would like to pay tribute to all the women, all the men who have helped us over the years. Finally, I would like to propose and encourage forums of Anglo-Indian women abroad. You may not have the same concerns as us, but you can make a difference in your community. To quote Mary Robinson, a former president of Ireland, "The hand that rocks the cradle can rock the system."